Today is a very special day. And you might ask yourself, well, why? Why is it a special day? It's Friday. That's good. That's a step in the right direction. It's not just any Friday. Not anymore. Fridays? Bye-bye. See you later. It's Fermentation Friday, episode 1. Okay, so wow, it's Fermentation Friday. It's the first time we're doing this. This feels weird and extremely uncomfortable, but hey, let's try new things together. Thanks for being a part of this. I love you, and you are important. I felt like there was nothing better than to kick off this series with lacto-fermentation. It's very basic yet very complex at the same time. So I've been pondering for a while on what I wanted to do with the series. You know, there's a lot subject to change for this series, but in general, I think this is gonna be good.
Okay, so before you get started, you need to understand very briefly, I promise I'll make it brief, what exactly lacto-fermentation is. Yes, I know my handwriting is bad, okay? I know. So the key word here is lacto. Sounds weird, sounds kind of gross, it's not. And a lot of people are probably gonna jump to milk. It's not milk, it's actually referring to lactic acid, more specifically lactobacillus. Now, lactobacillus is the same, well, actually, let me make sure I spelled this correctly. And hey, you know, that's a big win right there. And you might be thinking, Josh, why are you telling us about this? This is so boring, this stupid bacteria. Yeah, well, guess what? It's responsible for your yogurt, your sourdough bread, and cheese. Cheese, guys. If you like grilled cheese, you can think lactobacillus, unless you're using American cheese, in which case you're just eating plastic. So while it's responsible for all that, it's also responsible for turning this into something that's preserved and full of so much more flavor you didn't even know was there. To put it simply, it does that by metabolizing glucose into lactic acid, and that is pretty much the key factor there. The best part is that it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes of active time to do. Now basically all you're doing is submerging vegetables in brine, but your salt percentage is going to be determined by that vegetable. Here are all the different vegetables that I used. Now you can use whatever you want, but it's going to change slightly depending on what vegetable it is. So let's say you've got your vegetable, or fruit, but let's start with vegetable. Now you're going to need to calculate your brine percentage. The standard percentage you'll use for most vegetables is going to be 2%. 3% really only being reserved for things that are more prone to mold like cucumbers, peppers, or asparagus. I used to make my brines by just adding a percentage of salt based on the weight of the water, but since reading the Noma Guide to Fermentation book, which is really good by the way, you should go get it, link in my description, I found a much more consistent way of doing this. Instead, you're going to zero out the weight of the jar that you've chosen. And yes, you're gonna need a kitchen scale for this. Please don't use anything else. It's much more accurate. We're talking about protecting yourself from botulism here, so get a scale, please. Now, I'd recommend using at least a 1-quart jar or whatever appropriate size jar to fit your ferment in. Then fill it with the item that you want to ferment. In this case, I have some white asparagus here. Then pour in the filtered water just enough to cover the vegetables. It's okay if they float, don't worry. We'll weigh them down later. Then record that total weight in grams of both the item you want to ferment and the water combined. Then multiply that total by anything between 0.02 and 0.03, and you'll get the amount of salt that you need to add in that water in grams. In other words, if the vegetable and water weigh a grand total of 1,500 grams, then you'll need 30 grams of salt to put yourself at a 2% brine. Once you have your recorded salt that you need, weigh out that salt, pour the water out of that container into the bowl, add the weight of salt that you calculated, and by the way, I recommend using fine sea salt so it dissolves easily. Kosher salt's just kind of annoying to dissolve. Stir it to dissolve and pour back over your vegetables. That is it. See how easy that is when you do it this way? Because then you have the exact amount of liquid that you need. There's no wasted liquid or anything like that. It's just so easy. Now all you need to do is make sure your vegetables stay submerged. Now you can do a couple different things here. You can buy fermentation weights online if you want to be fancy. There'll be a link below. Or you can use small non-metallic pinch bowls, which I do all the time. You can also use a small Ziploc bag filled with water. That does a fantastic job. Or if the vegetables aren't floating up too bad, you can just use a little bit of plastic wrap which will adhere to the surface of the liquid, sort of creating a sealed environment. Then just place a lid on top and very lightly close it. Don't close it too tight because you want gases to naturally escape and you don't want to create a tiny little bomb in your kitchen. That's not good. Then just leave it out at room temperature for, well, until they taste the way you want them to. Or, you know, if they mold, then throw them away, but you know, you get the point. I would say anywhere between 3 days to 2 weeks depending on your tastes. Now, I don't have any video of this, but I will show a couple of images. Now, there is one thing that can develop on the top of your ferment called calm yeast. If you see this, it is not mold. Now mold is very different. Mold is very fuzzy and patchy. Calm yeast almost looks like a web. It looks like this. That's totally okay, totally still safe, but if you want to throw it away, if that develops, you totally can. Just a little tidbit. Now, that's it. Just let your things ferment. Once they're done, you can leave them in the brine and place them in your refrigerator, and they'll stay good for a very, very long time. Then just use them as you would pickles, or you can blend them into a sauce, or you can chop them up and add them to a salad. They are so incredibly versatile. Now, just because we're on a new series doesn't mean that I'm going to leave you out on the most important part, the B-roll.
Alright guys, and that is it. So, lacto-fermentation and the first episode of Fermentation Fridays in the books. Now I hope that this little series is met with excitement. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm completely open to opinions. Let me know what you guys are thinking about this and the direction of this, or what you guys may want to see in the future. What kind of ferments do you want to see, you know? And also don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. The link is in my description. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you next week.